Our reading today is entitled A Springtime Prayer, and it's written by George Tiger. O power of springtime, spirit of green grasses and warm breezes, goddess of creativity, of birth, of life renewed, you sing all about us at this time. The birds call your sacred name. Buds burst forth with your vestment. The sun reaches higher into the sky, shining the light of this new day through the windows of your cathedral, this world. O power of springtime, forgive us our speediness and our racing before your eternal grace, that we do not see the miracle world we share. Open our eyes with your warmth and our hearts with your beauty. Slow our minds with awe and wonder. Dear spirit of green grasses and warm breezes, let us find here in this moment of quiet the grace of your breath as we breathe into our bodies the spirit of spring. Amen. We are lucky to have our first speaker today, Mr. Mickey Hall, come speak.
Good morning. I want to start by saying just how much I love this church. I love everything about it, except maybe for the men's restroom downstairs. It's pretty cramped and a little scary. But everything else is great. I love how everyone is so open to different points of view and different ways of living. I love that we don't come in here every week and have to recite a specific creed in order to be a part of the group. I love the focus on the very humane impulse to make the world a better place, a safer place, a more just place, a kinder place, and to make it that way for everybody. One of the things I noticed about this church the first time I visited, and what made me want to come back, is the sanctuary windows. Most churches I've attended don't want you to see outside during the service. The windows are small, or they're high up, or they're filled with stained glass. And while the stained glass is often beautiful, it also separates the congregation from the outside world. It feels somehow disconnected from nature. In this church, the windows are large, and they look out over a gorgeous green and often blooming campus. So if you're really not into the sermon on one particular Sunday, you can always do some bird watching. My experience with church is limited, I admit. I didn't grow up in a church, so I didn't get that early indoctrination that seems so important. I did try to become Christian back in the 1990s. I attended a United Methodist church for about 10 years. My first wife and I wanted to raise our sons in a church, and that was the best choice in town. It was a good church, too. The people were kind and generous and supportive. My first wife eventually went on to seminary and became a minister. Ironically, my sons, now in their 30s, are both atheists. I liked the church, and I was active in it, and I loved a lot of the people. I tried to become a good Christian, I really did, but it didn't work. I never felt the call. My life as a Methodist sprouted, briefly blossomed, but never took root. I was the proverbial seed cast on stony ground. Partly, that's because my first wife and I divorced not long after that. But a big part of it is also because traditional churches, it seems to me, are in the business of separation. They separate believers from non-believers, the righteous from the sinner, the saved from the damned. And at some basic level, I think they separate mankind from the rest of nature, as if our spiritual life is divorced from our physical life, our social life, our political life, are every day going to work, raising the kids, and struggling with the budget life. Hence, my attachment to the great floor-to-ceiling windows of this sanctuary and the grounds they overlook. In a very obvious way, they connect what goes on inside this sanctuary to what goes on out there. It took me a long time to realize the basis of all spirituality is connection. I was in my 60s when I realized that. I'm not the fastest car on the racetrack. For me, the connection begins in the garden. I started gardening in the early 90s. At the same time, I was trying to become a Methodist. The difference is, 35 years later, I'm still gardening. I garden because gardening is one of the main activities in which people and nature work together. It is a place of connection. To garden, the main thing you have to do is pay attention. Go to the garden every day, pull up a few weeds, pick some tomatoes, check the peppers, trim back a few cucumber vines that are threatening to take over the neighborhood. Pay attention to the insect life that is literally teeming around you. There's all variety of insect romance and rivalry going on around the base of your zucchini. There's danger lurking just under the leaves of your eggplants. There's a kind of tragic irony in watching a wasp lay eggs under the skin of a live tomato hornworm. Those eggs will hatch, and the larvae will attach themselves to the hornworm's back and feed on it while it's still alive. It's kind of gross, but you also have to remember that the hornworm is the main pest of eating your tomatoes, so it's also kind of satisfying. Pay attention to the soil, its tilth, its nutrients, and if you want to get technical, its pH balance. Improve your soil by mixing in humus, that is, organic matter. Every fall, collect leaves from the yard and put them in the garden to keep the weeds from taking over. In the summer, mulch the paths with grass clippings from the lawn. It helps keep the soil moist and cool, which encourages the roots of your plants. I often hear people say they don't have a green thumb, as if making a garden is a talent that some folks are born with and others are not. It's not that way in my experience. Growing and nurturing anything is largely a matter of paying attention. And paying attention to something else sometimes helps you put your own life into perspective. Another thing about gardening is that it provides a way to connect with others. We sometimes think of gardening as a solo endeavor, as an escape from the pressures of work and family and stress and the 6 o'clock news. One of the great joys of growing food, though, is sharing it. For years, Vanessa and I took bags of peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers and squash and eggplants and so on to work, and we left them in the break room. Now that we're retired, we take them to the local community centers, or we give them to the neighbors. Try knocking on someone's door sometime, maybe somebody you don't really know, and say, "Hi, I live just down the street. I have a garden and I grew way too many of these Cherokee purple tomatoes and this yellow crookneck squash. Would you like some?" It's a simple thing to give something you have grown to someone else. It's a joy that you can share regardless of their politics, their point of view, the type of car they drive, or how they dress. It's only recently I've discovered another aspect of gardening that's social. That is, the grounds crew here at the church. I had always assumed that the garden work here was contracted out to some company, but it's not. It's done by a group of people right here, many of whom are sitting here right now, who get together every Saturday morning for a couple of hours, weather permitting, to keep the view of through these windows as lovely as it is. Gardening may start as a solo activity, but it is also a way to connect with others. I want to talk about one more connection I make through gardening. Every year in February, Vanessa starts the plants for our garden in little pots under the grow lights in the house. She gets very excited when she sees the first sprouts emerge. She calls me over, and I look at them, and I get excited. And then the dogs come over to see what all the hullabaloo is about, and they get excited. And then Pablo starts jumping up and down because that's what Pablo does when he gets excited. And that's how it starts, always. Now, imagine trays of young seedlings under the grow lights. I want to take one tomato plant from those trays and use it as an example of my last point. Let's say it's a brandywine tomato, a yellow brandywine. Vanessa starts the seed indoors, checks it, waters it, checks the temperature, nurtures it, and a few weeks later, she transplants our yellow brandywine into a larger pot. And when the weather gets warm enough, we move it outside to harden off. Eventually, we plant this yellow brandywine in the garden, and it grows into a vine. It doesn't take long for it to outgrow its cage, and it gets tangled up with other tomatoes and cucumbers and whatever else is in the area. And we have to clip it back sometimes. It will probably get early blight, which is a common fungus around here. It may get infested with mites and soft bugs, but we nurse it through all that, and it blooms, and it produces beautiful, large, lobed yellow tomatoes, buckets of them, that we pick and eat and boil into sauce and share with our neighbors. And as the summer progresses, our yellow brandywine starts to get gnarly and old. The weather changes in October, and eventually the frost takes it. Sometime in the winter or fall, I come along and clean the garden. I grab this yellow brandywine at the base, and I pull it out of the ground. Then I put it in the compost pile with all the other plants, and I add a few shovels full of soil for microbes. A year or two later, that yellow brandywine has been broken down slowly but inevitably by the microorganisms feeding on it. Then one spring morning, just before we plant the next crop, I get my wheelbarrow out, I go to the compost pile, I fill it up, cart it to the garden where it helps build soil for the next crop. That yellow brandywine is still there. Every part of it is now dispersed through the garden, helping to build what comes next, providing nutrients for the next generation, the next bounty, the next sharing, the next life. This is how I understand the soul. We live our lives connected to everything. Spirituality, then, is the extent to which we recognize and nurture those connections. You, of course, may have your own understanding of the soul. That's because we're Unitarian Universalists, and we don't have to all believe the same thing. We only have to try to love, to accept, and to nurture. And that's why I love the large windows in this sanctuary. Because we all know at some deep level we are part of something bigger, something we may not be able to name, but something we know to be eternal. 35 years ago, when I was trying to become a good Methodist, and when I was starting my first garden, I was out in the one morning pulling weeds, which I've done a lot of over the intervening years. And I got an idea for a poem, which I eventually wrote, and I'd like to read it for you now. It's called The Weed Puller. I feel at odds in church, among men, discussing religion. God won't come, won't sit with me on those hard pews to hear the pious sentiments of the pulpit. There's too much of man there. Oh, they're important, the churches. They keep us straight, remind us of mercy, bind us in fellowship, separate us, too, from the grubs and the mites and the white flies, but also the melons and the rain and the sunshine. God comes when I am in the garden, pulling weeds from the bolting lettuce on my knees, fingers combing the dirt for roots, tossing grasses, green and strong, to die in the wheelbarrow and be carted to the compost, soil for the next generation and regeneration. God comes when the only voice is in my head, when it's just me and the weeds and the bolting lettuce. God comes then. I need not search for that which I cannot avoid, the inescapable fingers of the weed puller. Thank you.
Blessed equinox and blessed Ostara. I'm Chelsea Henry. I use she, her pronouns. I am a member of this church and a pagan priestess. Welcome to today's miracle, the balancing point of day and night. For months now, every morning, the sun rose a little sooner, and every evening the night came a little later. Did you notice? Can you feel it? The returning sun? The light eaters know. They have been preparing all winter for this feast. And by light eaters, I mean the plants, the leafy ones, though not all plants have leaves. They have been reveling in the dark of winter. What a rest! What a great time to regroup, to root down, to dream little seed dreams. 3 months ago, the nights stopped getting longer. A month and a half ago, the soil changed enough that I could smell the mud, and the mud-loving frogs came out to sing their party songs. And now, right now, we are at that tipping point where the light eaters are beginning to arrive at this ball. You've seen the early arrivals in their party dresses, the daffodils with their frilly inner cups and nodding heads, the cherry blossoms with their petals dancing on the breeze, the naive tulip magnolias that arrive too soon and get burned brown by frost. Coming up next, we will have the floating fancy of the dogwoods, ethereal in the understory, and the flounce of the irises as they unfurl layer after layer of delicate ruffle. The tulips are pushing up, bright and in full color, boldly entering the spring ball with all of their sisters. The light eaters are celebrating, and we are invited to their gala. Together, let us tune ourselves to their song and find our own hopeful frolic. I invite you now to take a deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Feel how your body is held by gravity. You belong on this earth, and gravity keeps you rooted down to the source of all life. Take a second deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Allow the tension to drain down out of your body, down from the top of your head, down from the small muscles of your face, down from your shoulders and your low back and hips, and maybe even your tired knees, if they are tired. Let gravity pull it all down so you can let it go. Take a third deep breath and let it out with a sigh. You are a seed. Imagine yourself small and firm, tightly wound inside your shell. It's a good shell. Maybe you have wrinkles or speckles or an interesting shape. It has kept you safe until you were ready. It has been a wonderful place to curl up and dream of what you want to become. But now, the soil around you has awakened. The mud is alive. The earthworms sing to you, and there is a crackle as other seeds sprout around you. You are in good company. This shell, this wonderful, beautiful shell, is no longer the right fit for your spirit. You sit in wonder, feeling the life force like electricity in your cells. There is an ache inside you, a yearning for something you do not fully understand. You need to stretch. What was comfortable has become cramped. You know in your deepest self that there is something wonderful waiting for you. Maybe you linger here a while on this cusp, feeling the possibilities soak through like snow melt. Or maybe you are impatient to take the leap. Either way, when you are ready, you are ready. You unfurl. How could all of you have fit so tightly wound? You are growing even as you open up. You stretch down, thin white roots drinking deeply of the living soil, and you stretch up into soft darkness. Keep going. Keep going. You've got this. Oh, what is that? You feel it on your pale neck. The sun. You have stretched until you rose from the earth into sunlight and air. It feels so good. You raise your head, previously tucked down, and now you lift toward the sun. You know how to do this. This is exactly where you're supposed to be. You are a sprout. New tiny leaves unfurling. There is more to uncurl, and more again. Your leaves feast on the sunlight, growing bigger and broader. Inside, you are singing. Oh, all around you, everywhere, others are singing too. The spring has come, and your seed has sprouted. Take a moment to listen to your seed song sprouting into this world, into this sacred moment of welcome. Breathe deeply and know we are here together. Blessed Ostara.
Good morning. I'm Jodi McDaniel. My pronouns are she, her. Today, I stand at the end of a long line of people who lived on the land, drew their sustenance from it, and tried to leave it better than when they got it. My paternal grandparents lived on a self-sustaining farm, and as a child, I remember seeing on the wall of their dining room a framed certificate from the federal government commending them for growing and preserving their own food and contributing to the war effort during World War II. I don't know where it is now, but I still have that memory. My maternal grandmother weeded her garden with a tablespoon. That's right, a tablespoon. She didn't want to damage the plants. My father's garden sustained us all through the winter, and my little mother weeded from a lawn chair when she could no longer bend and stoop. Now, as a younger person, I resisted the land. It was such hard work. I lived in the cities. I made friends. I married, and I pursued several careers. And for the past 22 years, I have lived on the backside of nowhere in the highlands of Cheatham County on 20 acres of forest and meadow that was once part of the ancestral homeland of the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, the Muskogee Creek, and the Yuchi people. I have a vegetable garden that I dig and plant by hand. I harvest by hand. I don't use fertilizers or pesticides. And I let the native grasses and the wildflowers grow throughout their seasons until they die away before I ever cut the grass. I let the leaves lie on the ground through the winter for the ground nesters and the pollinators. And I create brush piles in the forest parts from the limbs and the twigs that I pick up from the yard. And there are a lot of them, believe me. The property is registered as a green belt. There has not been, nor will there ever be, any commercial logging. I have buried 6 furry companions on that land, and I get locked in during snowstorms, and it is still hard work, I have to tell you. So what changed? Maybe I changed. Maybe I didn't. Maybe my DNA caught up with me. But I think it's deeper than that. As far back as I can remember, I would rather be outside than inside. I'd rather be barefoot than wear shoes. I'd rather touch the grass and be held up by the earth. And when I'm outside, I never feel lonely or sad or inadequate or unloved. The wind whispers. Sometimes it shouts. And its susurrations through the trees soothes my soul. The sky and the clouds put on an endless variety show. Storms speak of power that I never will fully understand and can only witness with awe and sometimes trembling. Birds flit, flutter, and chatter about their lives, and even the vultures that swoop by to go nest in my chicken house are filled with their purpose. The deer lift their heads in mild appraisal as long as I don't move too fast or speak too loudly. Bobcat tracks in the snow can leave me breathless. And the whippoorwills, oh my goodness, I could sit on the porch all night and listen to them. And the fireflies, don't get me started on those. They're coming back and I'm so excited. And even the copperheads have their own inexplicable majesty. Now, is there a God or a supreme being? Does it matter? In the words of one of my 6-year-old students, I don't know. Those are really hard questions. I sometimes feel like an infinitesimal dot in the universe. And sometimes I feel like the universe is an infinitesimal dot on the iris of my eye. But when I'm digging, planting, picking up sticks, or just sitting, listening, and looking, I am content and I am at peace. And I know that I am right where I need to be, and I am who I need to be. And I know that the land on which I stand is holy ground.